What's going on, everybody? This video, I do a lot of videos talking about um, my relationship with my father, and I do videos talking about my relationship with my blood family. But I really don't talk about my mother. Um, my mother, I'm still learning about today, folks. Even though, to be honest with you, my father died 2 years ago, last December 22nd, just not very long. 2 years ago, just last month. My mother died 6 months later. Now, it's hard. I can't, as much as I fight it and I don't want to bring up my sister, I can't talk about my mother without doing it. My mother's who built my sister. But, folks, there's things I've learned, and this is what wisdom is, folks. Knowledge is. You learn things later in life when you are maybe in that kind of a position and you understand why somebody might have done something years ago. And because this happens to me. It's still happening to me today, folks. And but my mother, I always loved my mother. I always loved my father. Um, but me and him came to blows. Now, my mother, I wasn't hitting my mother, but I'm telling you what, my mother, she was no wussy. No, 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 no. Uh, I'll go ahead and tell this story. One day, me and my sister had to share a car, and this is just a story about my mom and how tough she was. And I got many, but my sister was 5'9". I'm five. I was 5'7". Uh, I think it took me until about 22 years old. No, I wasn't that old, but I was short, folks. I was always short, but I think I was around 5'7". My sister was old, and she always towered over me. Big girl, right? She's tall. Yeah, I'm not saying she had a manly build or anything. She was just a tall girl. Many and most of your uh, models are tall and skinny. I bet. Did I just compare my sister to? No way. Nah. People. Oh man, shit. But she was tall. She wasn't over. She wasn't fat. She wasn't anything like that. She was just taller than me. My mind. But my mom, she did things when I was growing up that I find, at the time I was thinking probably the same thing she was thinking. Um, was it right or wrong at that time? It was what worked. The laws that are in place today weren't in place back then. Let's just put it like that. But when I was born, my father was 33 years old. My mother was only 24 years old. See, and that's something you don't really start thinking about till you get older in life. You just know mom and dad, as far as you know, they're both have been on the earth just as evil and as long as each other. That's what most kids think, anyway. But there was almost 10 years. There was 9 years between my mom and my dad. And my dad came out of it, and I don't want to make this about my dad, but he came out of the Korean War. He was, like I said, 9 years older than her. He came out of the Korean War. in his mid-20s. And let's see. Yeah, about 24 years old. He when he came out of Korea, and at that time, my mom would have only been, uh, I don't want to say it, but 13. But they didn't meet then, folks. He ended up. My mom got married before once before she married my father. I'm telling you, sound just like me, exactly like me. Now I've never really heard how long she was married to this first guy she was married to, but the main thing she always told me that he would get drunk, beat the hell out of her, and that's why she divorced him. And if that's true, I wasn't there. I don't know. So, but if that's true, I don't blame. I would have done the same thing if I was her. See, my mom wasn't. My mom, I think, she was smaller than me. My dad was only 5'7". I'm telling you, folks, my dad, and I don't want to make this about my dad. He was 5'7", 135 pounds when he went into the Korean War. He come back with 3 Bronze Stars and a Silver Star, and never got touched by a bullet, piece of shrapnel, or anything. He only had frostbite from crawling around on the frozen ground and shooting at people. By the time the Marines got to him to save him, all he had was some frostbite, but he had a lot of mental problems, folks. He went, there was a lot of mental problems there, and he drank. And and my mom put up with that. My mom did. Up until my dad was 50 years old and I was 14. She put up with his drinking. But that fight, that was the last fight. And it put him in the hospital with his lungs punctured, with his ribs. I broke him up bad and he almost died from it. And he never drank or smoked after that. He didn't do none of that after that, folks. And he never laid another hand on anybody. But my mom, she was so scared of him because of his background. And there was good reason to be. I was scared of him for the first 14 years of my life. I was scared to death of him. But my mom, she was so scared of him for me. And I don't know what it was about me, folks. Maybe because I think this is what it was. He had a son that I think he knew about. And I've talked to the man. His name is Ray. I talked to him, and he said that his grandparents and stuff said my father used to come around and play with him when he was a kid. So my father knew about him. And my father's next child that was born, was it my mother's choice? Was it my father's choice? What was it? To come to find out, the next child my father had, it was a girl, and he gave her Ray's middle name. He gave her the middle name of Ray from his first son. Now, was that a choice? Like I said, was that a choice of my mom, or was that my dad's choice? And she didn't know about Ray, the firstborn son. I don't know about any of this, so I'm still learning, folks, about my parents, to be honest with you. So now, about a year and 4 months after they had my sister, I'm born. I'm supposed to be the firstborn son. Uh, I'm named David Brian Grooms. My brother now, he was born 4 years later than me, and they named him after my dad, William. That's always been in my mind. Look, why would you name your second son after the father? You don't do that. You name the first. Well, I wasn't even the first, and we didn't find that out until later, folks. But see, I don't know if my mother knew all this stuff, but my mother at a time when me and my sister, like I said, I can't leave my sister out of this. My sister was a grade ahead of me in school. Before she graduated, she was pregnant by a guy in town. And I think it wasn't long after she graduated, my first nephew was born. At this time now, my mother, see, I got to go back and put myself in my mother and father's shoes. See, I never met none of our grandparents. None of us ever met none of them. My father, both of his parents, I guess, were dead or they gave up. On my father's side, they gave them up. My father was the oldest, and he looked like he was about 7. And his youngest brother, there was two other brothers, and they were younger than him, and they were already in adoption homes by that time. So my father's side never met none of my grandparents. My mother's side, her mother died not long after her birth, and her father had real bad asthma, and so did my mother. And by the time my mother was like 5 or 6 years old, they had told her father, "Look, you need to go to Arizona." She grew up in Ohio. My mother did, born and raised up here, and they told her father that you need to go to Arizona. That'll save or give you more life. It's a dry heat out there. You'll breathe better. And that's true, folks. That is really true. I breathed a lot better out there. I didn't even carry inhalers at all out there. But so my mother and her father moved out when she was like 5 or 6 years old. I've got a picture of them, and they were living in a little pull along camper that you'd pull along behind your car or something, truck. And they were living in this camper. I got the picture. And he died not long after that. He's buried out in Arizona. Well, that's where my mom and dad met, was in Arizona, and my sister was born out there. That's where Arizona comes into my life, you know. They ended up going back after they had me and my brother. They had me in Nashville and my brother in Indianapolis, and then they ended up moving back to Arizona. So my kids were raised in Arizona. But my mother, during the time she was growing up, it was a different time, folks. Women, I don't even think they had the right to vote or anything like that. It took a man for a woman to own anything or to have anything. And she taught my sister this because of the baby my sister got pregnant with in high school. She started teaching my sister this same thing. You need a man, you need a man. You can't do this by yourself. You need a man, you need a man, you need a man. And not only my mother and father, after she got pregnant, but also the father of the baby, his family told them, "You're going to marry her." So they were both forced to be married, basically, by that generation. And when that, they ended up, they made it a few years and had a few kids, and it all fell apart. And my mom's looking at my sister 20 some 30 years later and saying, what are you going to do? You can't make it out here without a man. This is what my mom taught my sister. You can't make it out here without a man. Not. It was a different time. My mother believed different things, folks. Even, I'll tell you what though, my mother worked the entire time I was, until she was forced into retirement. And she used to just tell me all the time, Brian, why won't they let me go over here? Why won't they let me run a cash register over here at this store? Why won't they let me? I can make beds and stuff at a motel. Why won't they let me do it? And I'm like, Mom, you're so fragile. You're going to fall and break yourself, and then there'll be a lawsuit against them. They can't have you in there doing that. And she didn't understand that. She always worked. But even in her mind, she didn't think that she could make it without a man. And many women have proved that they could do it. Not that that's the way you're supposed to do it. But women, everybody can make it, My mother I loved her. I wasn't allowed to see her. My blood family wouldn't let me see her after my father died. So when she died 6 months later, I never even got to hug her, anything. I went down there, and they used the same sheriff's department that I'd had on video doing corrupted crap. They used that same sheriff's department to keep me from seeing my mother. They made claims that I threatened to kill them or whatever, and there was times I did, but it wasn't in the last 20 years, folks. It's what I say. People, there's things you do when you're younger that you can't walk away from. People won't let you. They will not let you walk away from it. They don't think there's any way you can change because there's nothing about them that ever changes. Nothing. They just keep doing the same old crap, dealing with the drama, dealing with the heartache and all that. And they think there's no way it can be any different for me or you. But when I finally walked away from that blood side of my family, I've never had so much peace. So much peace in my life. God had people. I lived in 11 states. My parents didn't live in 11 states. I've lived in over 50 states. I was moving. It was like I was trying to get away from them. But I always came back to them, man. I don't know. I love them. I love them. I wanted to be a part of their, I wanted to be in their lives, but I never was. And that was mostly because of my sister and my mother. And what they claimed I was. At one time, they had a good reason to claim that. But not today. And the sad thing is, these guys don't even know who I am today. If you ask them, they'll tell you the same thing the government tells you. I'm armed and dangerous. I ain't lying, folks. God loves you. I love it. It's just another one of my stories. Seek Jesus. If you want that peace in your life, you can have it. You just got to get away from the people that are causing the drama. Walk away. Just say no. That's what I do. Love you guys.